have the largest smart traffic center and roads that are integrated through VDOT. That's number 3rd largest in the United States. We have all the technology to integrate everything, including this, and run it through an already existing command and control system. We already have all of this stuff we're never using, except for stupid message boards that don't tell you anything of value, okay? We're so poised to do what he's talking about in there, we would be idiots to not support something like this. But our issue is what you said. Those that benefit most should pay, and we believe in the private sector investing their own money and doing competition. I'm applauding that you have competition. Your options are going to be better now instead of the one size fits all. All right? So all I would suggest to you is that you get with me. I put all of this together years ago for Maglev and pitched it to my company as a strategic growth model for us to invest in with our own money, because that's the future of everything. And I headed that effort up. I've done 20 years of research on this and briefed this group. So all I'm saying to you is amen and yay, but the final line is this. The people who benefit most should pay. The cost of operating these things, the people that write it should be the people that pay for it. Not 90% subsidized by taxpayers and 10% subsidized by the people that use it as some kind of a social welfare thing. Since you agree it's about economic development, final point, why the hell are we using drivers' tax dollars to fund all this stuff through the whole entire transportation pots of money, instead of taking another kind of dedicated resource and pots of money? The money we pay at the tank is to fix our roads, not to build all this transit crap that we can't use because it doesn't go where we need to go. So I'm suggesting to you that since you're readily admitting this is about economic development and not about transit, that we go back and revisit the entire funding mechanism of this and stop robbing the money from fixing the roads and pay for these non-required but nice to have transit options. Lastly, you make a statement in your sales pitch. You make a statement in your sales pitch that the motivation for this is to bring corporate headquarters.
No, we want to hear it. Let him do it.
Corporate headquarters are going to flock to do this because we're going to build an assembly plant. The problem with all of these plans, Dave, is there's never a commitment up front in writing to do that. That's a sales pitch. So we put the money up front, we build all this, build it and they will come. And oh well, I'm sorry, things happen and they don't show up. A better way to get us to support this is to get commitments from people to move their headquarters here with some longevity. Because simply saying we're going to build it and this is going to happen hasn't been borne out. And that's the flaw in the marketing pitch for this. We can get some of that on the table and the return on investment is real and not hypothetical. You've got people in this room, me being one of them, who will work to make that happen.
Oh, questions now, please.
This is a question.
Okay, I think
Isn't the reason that they want to build light rail from where it stops now to town center, the state does, is so that the citizens of the city of Virginia Beach will bail out Norfolk's boondocks,
That's not.
as opposed to us building our own mag-lift from the light rail into the city, where we built our own thing, and we're not paying for the idiots in Norfolk that built that thing. Isn't that true?
Well, I can't tell you what they're thinking because I don't get to sit in their inner circle. But there's three questions I asked the Secretary of Transportation and the DRPT director and our own CTV member, John Malvin, in the meeting that we had with the mayor, the manager, and the city attorney. And I was quite frankly the lowest ranking guy in the room. And I said, who needs light rail more? The city of Norfolk or the city of Virginia Beach? Norfolk. Who needs light rail more? The city of Virginia Beach or the state of Virginia? The answer is the state. Who needs light rail more? the city of Virginia Beach or the United States government? And the answer is the United States government, because they're committed to their bucks. And so the answer is, look, I think we need to be honest here. Who needs that extension to Virginia Beach?
We don't.
Norfolk.
Well, there's a benefit because it's part of the Southside Transit System. There's a long-term thing. If the deal is 50-50 today, and here's an argument. The original transaction that we brought to them, that we proposed to them, that my team put together, that we actually have yet to actually codify in an agreement was, they put their 155 on the table first, in full, and can be purchased and we can use it for soft costs. And we pick up the tab beyond. Meaning, if I bring the project in for significantly less than 310 million, the extension, then the cost savings is harvested by the RFP cost savings is harvested by the city of Virginia Beach. That argument has yet to be played out in the negotiation of the finances. Is there a value of connecting the town centers of Norfolk and Virginia Beach?
Still connected.
It depends how you look at it. If you tell me that's all the light rail and all the transit we will ever get to, then the answer is absolutely not. But if you tell me that you believe that the Southside Transit System could actually evolve, that we could connect to the airport, that we could connect to Little Creek, we could connect to the municipal center, we could go to the ocean front, we could have a system that actually serves all the quadrants of Virginia Beach. And oh, by the way, to get to Chesapeake, it's not what you're reading in the paper to go up to Harbor Park. Do you know what that would take financially to build? I mean, it's more idiot planners, and they're developing stuff that they don't have a financial understanding of how, or an engineering aspect, how to get to. It drives me nuts. And that's why we have separation of powers amongst our DCMs, so they don't go nuts. The answer is, you go right down the Lynn Haven Parkway we're constructing. I mean, you're at Volvo and Greenbrier. Now, why don't they want that to happen? Because it connects us to what? Chesapeake's retail, right? The people that are going to the retail will come the other direction. We ought to be cognizant. It'll get my wife to Greenbrier. She'll love to do that. Drive down to Great Neck, jump on a Kia Lincoln dealer there, and poof, where you been? Riding around on your neighborhood. It's really good. The thing is, if you believe in a bigger system, then the answer is buy that last buggy whip.
Why can't it be maglev?
My argument.
Why can't it be maglev to there?
It could be, but then you have a transition. Then you have a ridership transition between technologies. And we will not get the growth that a transition at Town Center will give us. Now the answer is, what is the percentage? I would rather you go away from this argument and say, what is the percentage you're willing to put? Maybe I do the math that says, if we did maglev from Union Station to Newtown, what would we have to pay to get that piece? That's the piece we'll invest in light rail. And you have to pick up all the rest because you need it more than I do. Then maybe I make a financial argument with the decision makers that says, I'm spending the same amount of money. You're looking at the long-term operational costs and the bailout of the issues of operating and maintenance for all that. Well, that gets written in the little transaction deal that we have. And so rather than say no, 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 say yes, but these are the terms by which we mathematically can enter into this deal. If the terms are other than that, then you know what? We don't want to play. And I agree with that conversation, but at least you've got a financial number that says, this is what I would probably spend anyway. So let me make that my basis of entering the negotiation and say, look, that's all I'm willing to put on the table. I put it on the table anyway if I used another technology. And the answer is, if that's the number that we enter the argument, they got to decide whether the juice is worth the squeeze or they want to have us in that pot. That's a valid argument in the conversation of negotiation.
My question was really the same as his, but I want my question to you, because you said, I don't know. if, you know, because of us having to pick up Norfolk's blunder, and you're saying, I don't know, how can we go into discussion and think about even putting light rail from town center to, Newtown to town center, if we don't know the cost involved that we're picking up from Norfolk? How can you even talk about that? Because it's going, that's the reason, and you know it.
Right.
That's the reason.
I know I went so fast on all this stuff, but in these charts you're gonna have, there's the light rail estimated annual O&M costs associated with, and there'll be a new column. There'll be a new column that'll come down here that'll say, well, instead of Rosemont, okay, SDA, town center, alternate 4.8. It goes through town center. There'll be a column here that is just town center, which is the 3 miles, 2.9 to 3.2, depending on where the station is. And it'll come down and there'll be a number right there. And then you'll know in the report of what our annual costs are. And that'll be in the deal. That's how we're gonna rank.
For how many
We need to
years?
update that slide to reflect that after, I think it's this year, doesn't the Norfolk share go up because they're a 2-year subsidy deal with the state, and Fed goes away and their costs go up?
I'm not so sure it doesn't incorporate that, but I will research. I mean, this is HRT's numbers, and not my
And for
stuff.
how many years is this going?
Like forever.
Oh, so forever and ever? That's the case. To pay up because of Norfolk's blunder.
Well, that's the, I don't know.
Yeah, wait a minute,
You
come
can't get me to go
on.
there.
Come on, you don't know?
That's cocktail party talk.
Well-
The thing here is.
Well, I don't want cocktail, I want the.
No fairness to what Dave's telling you is, when you have to do forever, and that's what that really is.
Yeah.
You could say 100 years is forever. You'd have to assume some escalation of their cost to this labor intensive is going to be 3 to 4% a year. Do a net present value analysis and say, this is what you're buying into. If that same segment was just the construction, I suspect over the life cycle would favor maglev over the light rail extension just because of the cost escalation factor.
Absolutely.
And so that's, but you can't, you have to bound it for parametric purposes. So what he's saying is he can't guarantee it, but you can do, what he's suggesting is, we need to do, as best we do, we ought to, is put the scenario out there and say, don't say 20 years, that's not a fair thing. You know, say a 50-year might be a good place to look at. Say, over this time frame, net present value analysis, are you better off foregoing the $155 million from the state, doing it yourself, building what you want, and having to pay the upfront cost for the long-term savings? Does the analysis say it's worth it? I think that's pretty close.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, why do this forever? If maglev is supposed to be less expensive.
Well, I didn't bring you the O&M cost for maglev. I have the maglev O&M cost for the pilot, the new pilot, the big one that I showed you around the convention center and over the interstate to Alaskan. I have an analysis provided to me, a more current one from the company. It says this is the O&M costs associated with the breakdown in labor and everything else that you guys would want to see. And then the phase 2, which would be from Laskin Road, Burnett, Laskin, all the way to town center. So I know what those costs are. We can do a cost comparison. We will do a
To compare from
light rail versus maglev.
from Newtown to town center.
And we'll add that in there because they have a per mile estimate.
Okay.
Dave, two questions.
Yes,
One
sir.
is, why is the state so opposed to maglev? And then secondly, what's your sense of city council right now of reconsidering and looking seriously or close to that maglev?
I believe that they've taken a position because the staff up there has really forced the leaders to take that position, and to do otherwise would probably jeopardize concern of the General Assembly and other things, and jeopardize the commitment of $155 million. I believe there's a genuine concern by the Secretary of Transportation, who happens to live in Little Neck, who happens to live in our community, who happens to be a very good friend of everybody, and is really trying to do, even though he's playing hardball, he really does mean to preserve that which he can to support us. Unless it's approved, an approved transit system by the Federal Transit Authority of the national government, you can't get on the road, you can't produce, you can't actually operate unless you're on a private test bed like what is in Powder Springs. So I don't think it's as antagonistic or as vehement as I've seen it and as it's portrayed. I believe that it will eventually emerge as a more collaborative. But I go back to those three questions. They need us really bad, and they really want to throw a lot of money at us to do this. And I'm not sure our deal is done yet. I think that we have more leverage than just 50-50, and they know we're coming back to them. And I think that with a little urging from certain council members to push hard on that deal, that will improve that deal. And then if I can make an argument to the public that says, if we really spent this much for this system, then why not just allow them to pay the rest? What do we care? If it goes to Blue Line, the operating costs, we negotiate a good deal that's reasonable and that you guys understand all those long-term costs. And as a result, can compare and contrast what another system is, and we can get a fair percentage of that. I think that's a reasonable approach. Your second question is, what is my belief of the city council to support maglev? I think it's in the bag. I think that was the most convincing 45 minutes the city council spent on this discussion for a while. I thought Jim Wood did an excellent job. I don't think we have to convince John Moss of that. He went down there and pushed the train, stood and pushed, actually when it levitated by itself, stood there, one person, and pushed the entire train. It floats. It's instant correction. 30-mile-an-hour wind hit a magnet, guess what it does? It compensates instantly. It's magnetism. It's the gravity. It's the polar forces of magnetism. So I think we're.
So there's a shift, you'd say.
It was never really. There was never really a lot of support for light rail to begin with. The only thing that's making light rail is how much the state's willing to pay to get it to town center. Do we need it more than they do? I think I've explained to you, I don't think we do. So what's it worth it to you guys to put it to our town center? Oh, by the way, I'm advocating that it comes in at grade. It dead ends in Independence on 5 foot of ballast. It doesn't get an opportunity to cross Independence. Because if you grade separate at that point, it adds another $20 million to it. The estimate, if you read that estimate, you'll see, I'd rather take that $20 million, put it into a Union Station, a people move that connects all the quadrants. That you're moving, you know, when you get off at Orlando or Norfolk International and you get on the people mover and you go to the terminals from the parking lot, a big giant one like that, and grab my paper and grab my coffee and go down, get on the next train and go on where I gotta go, or drop down to my office there, or meet my wife at 7 o'clock for dinner on the way home, because she rode in from the other direction and we teetotal home together. I think a Union Station, and look what's going on with Union Stations. If you query the internet, you'll see that Miami's going that direction. A lot of cities are putting a lot of investment in that Union Station concept because it is where big business wants to put those pickles.
All of this sounds good, but I still have a basic concern that the government doesn't have any money when they get ready to put up the money. They'll go borrow it, or they'll raise taxes somewhere to get it. But the state of Virginia doesn't have $155 million today to write a check for this project. The federal government doesn't have it. They're borrowing 35-40 cents on the dollar. And it all gets back down to the taxpayer. And it's a great, I mean, your presentation this morning is the best one I've heard, I think, and fairly convincing, except when it gets into paying for it. We still have a lot of roads out here that will be car pieces because we haven't repaired it. There's infrastructure that is not being taken care of in all cities across this country. But we'll go do something big and new before we'll take care of that. Now, if I don't take care of my house month to month, year to year, it's going to fall down. And the people.
And so I kind of respond to you, and I'm there. I'm a taxpayer. I got kids in college. I got a big old house I got to take care of, and you know, dishwashers break, and rear end of my truck goes out. We all have those bills. The thing is,